Hello and welcome to the Visionary Leaders Community Call, where you learn to be the healer in your home. My name is Erin Fugate, and I am one of the founding members of this community. Today, we're going to be talking about sleep. So just with a raise of hands or some emojis, how many of us struggle with this part of our life? Maybe you feel like you never get enough sleep. Maybe you're extremely tired only to crawl into bed at night. Does this happen to anyone where you're like, I'm so tired, I can't wait to hit the sheets, and then your mind turns on and you can't sleep because you have a million thoughts? So if you have ever thought, I wish I could get better sleep and feel extremely rested when I wake up, then this call is for you. And if you know anyone that struggles with sleep, please share the podcast, click the share button. When you hear something good, when you hear wisdom, you have to share it because you never know who needs it and their life could be changed by just your willingness to share. Essential oils can be extremely supportive for sleep. So they turn down our adrenaline and our cortisol levels. They can aid in stress management. They can help with hormone balance, which definitely affects sleep. And there's many other functions that they can help with that might be causing the sleep dysfunction. On the call today, you're going to be hearing a story from Aisha Harley. I was a part of this story, so I hope I make a cameo, and how she struggled with sleep, only to find a very happy solution in the essential oils. Then we're also going to hear from Dr. Josie and some of the other physicians in our community. You might learn something surprising about one of the systems of the body that can greatly improve sleep if this system is balanced. I'm excited for us to put that little bit in here. At the end, we're going to open up the call to all of our community members because we really want to hear your stories around sleep. If you have a particular diffuser blend or something you put on the bottom of your feet, or you just have a cool story about how you helped your sleep patterns or a friend's sleep patterns, we want you to share it at the end of this call. So start thinking about that now. But without further ado, I want to invite my friend Aisha Harley, Presidential Diamond with doTERRA. She lives in Portland, Oregon. She is a retired photographer and a cute dog mom, and also someone who struggled with sleep. She's going to share her story with us. So take it away, Aisha.
Hello. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you all for joining this call live, and hello to everyone listening to the podcast. I am happy to be here with all of you, and I do hope that if you have sleep issues, you will find my story both informational and offer you some hope. And or again, if you know somebody that does have sleep issues, please share this with them, because as we all know, sleep is absolutely vital to our health. And I think that we live in a society that prides itself on not getting sleep, right? People pride themselves on, I only need a few hours of sleep a night and I'm fine. Well, that's actually not true. Not getting good sleep wreaks havoc on your health, which I'm sure the doctors can speak to after I share my story. So I'm going to take you back a few years, about 14 to be exact. So this is actually a story that feels like a whole different chapter of my life. And I'm just really glad at this point that I have all of these years of good sleep experience that I can come to you and say that this is what this has resulted in. So it all started with the coming apart of my marriage, followed by the death of a close friend, then the cancer diagnosis and the death of my father, and then a car accident to boot. And let's not mention the recession, which led me to living off my credit card. So needless to say, my stress levels were at 1,000 plus 24/7. My anxiety was ramped up with little reprieve. And unfortunately, this went on for a number of years. So I was really living in a state of red alert nonstop, right? And so what began to happen is that my body was so continuously amped with adrenaline and cortisol that I became so exhausted, but so much so that when it was time to go to bed, I couldn't fall asleep. So, like, put something in the chat, or I'm sure we've all experienced this, is that we are so exhausted and all you want to do to sleep, but then you lie down to go to sleep and your body is buzzing and your mind is buzzing and you can't sleep. Well, so imagine that for 3 years with no break, right? So literally for 3 years, I barely slept. And what that would look like was massive anxiety before I went to bed, because I knew that falling asleep was becoming so difficult. And then I would probably fall asleep like late into the night, but really literally only for a couple hours. And then when I woke up, I literally felt drugged. I actually used to use the expression, I felt like I had been run over by a truck. So when I woke up, I felt hungover, although I don't drink, but I literally felt that like feeling of being hungover. I would feel groggy. I would feel sick. I would have horrible mind fog, which made, if I had to be anywhere in the morning, it was torture. It was really, really hard to get up and function. And then essentially, this just bled into the rest of my day. So doing simple tasks like going to the grocery store or having a conversation or just going on a walk with a girlfriend actually became really challenging for me, because it literally affected everything in my life. And essentially, I felt like I was going crazy. Now, at the time, I was a yoga teacher, right? So I taught people how to relax. I had a steady yoga practice. I felt like I had these tools in my toolbox. I saw naturopathic doctors. I thought that I was doing all of the things. I started taking melatonin and tryptophan and Chinese herbs and doing acupuncture. My medical doctor even gave me Ambien, which I refrained from taking on a regular basis, but sometimes I just couldn't take it and I would take it once in a while. But literally nothing really worked. So it didn't really matter what I did during that period of time, nothing really worked. So about 3 years into not sleeping, gratefully, and I still am grateful every single day, I met Erin. So here's Erin's important entrance into the story. And I was teaching at a yoga studio where she was also working, and she introduced me to these oils. And I'm going to kind of shorten the story to the really relevant parts. I knew nothing about essential oils. I had a few that I put in my bath, and that was about the end of it. So I started playing with them. I became curious about them. They definitely caught my attention. And at one point, she suggested that I try some Slim and Sassy. Now, truth be told, I was kind of freaked out about taking oils under my tongue because, you know, you can use oils topically, rubbing them on your skin. You can take them internally, the doTERRA essential oils, and you can use them aromatically. And I'm going to talk about how all three methods actually became useful in my protocol. So with some reluctance, I started taking Slim and Sassy under my tongue. And I do want to mention right now, we'll talk a little bit more about this. This is this oil right here. And if you got on the call earlier, you may have seen that I literally just put 5 drops under my tongue. And I do that again. I do this every day. I still take this oil. This is my desert island oil, and I'm going to talk about why. But currently, the oil is temporarily on hold because we have some exciting things coming with it. So if you go look for it today, you're not going to find it, but it will be available again soon. So anyway, I started taking Slim and Sassy, and I started taking it randomly for about 3 days. And on the 3rd day, I actually started to sleep. Now, of course, I thought, oh, this is a total fluke, right? Like, this isn't really happening. And I happened to be in Salt Lake City at the time with Erin and another friend, and we were all sharing a hotel room. And so that was actually really stressful for me because I was sleeping with 2 other women, but I would mostly just toss and turn, toss and turn, and toss and turn. And so on that 3rd night, I actually slept. And again, I thought it was a fluke, but I continued to sleep. And not only did I start sleeping, but my energy started to improve, my brain fog started to improve, my menstrual cramp started to improve, and my digestion started to improve. So ultimately, it had an impact on my metabolic function, which I'll allow Dr. Josie and Dr. Louise, or whoever wants to speak up about that. They'll talk about that a little bit more and its importance in our sleep routine. But this, for me, was literally a miracle. Like, the fact that I was sleeping was literally a miracle in my life. It changed my life. And it ultimately is why I am here, actually 12 years later, still using and educating others about essential oils because of the impact it had on me. So there's a little bit more. So my sleep dramatically improved, right? The one thing I was still having a challenge with is I would still wake up in the middle of the night and I would have a really hard time falling back asleep. Does anyone experience that, where you're good till like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then you wake up and go to the restroom, and then you just can't get yourself back to sleep? Well, a few years later, I actually adopted a dog. She came from Kauai and she had really severe anxiety. She, in fact, would not leave my bedroom for like the first 3 months that we had her. And so I was doing all of the things. And one of the things I started to do was diffuse serenity in my bedroom 24/7. What I noticed was when I would wake up to go to the restroom or would wake up, I was quickly falling back asleep. So I realized the impact of having that aromatic, the essential oils diffusing by the bed at night. So by simply, if you have sleep issues, diffusing essential oils, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what oils in a moment, but just starting there can actually be way more impactful than you might imagine. So that's another tip for you. So then, of course, moving forward a few more years, then thankfully, doTERRA actually came out with a sleep line. And they came out with the Serenity gel caps, which I absolutely love. They are very effective, and they have essential oils in them and L-theanine and some different herbs, and they're really wonderful. It gently coaxes your body into a restful state. They can promote dreams for some, so do know if you start taking them and you start dreaming more, that can be common. And then there's 2 more products that I really want to highlight, in that the adaptive line came out also, which is really geared more towards stress and anxiety. However, another issue that I've had issues with is when I wake up in the night is having racing thoughts. So it took me years to actually understand that this is actually anxiety. You know, you wake up and you're worried about something and it spins like a broken record and you just can't turn it off. Well, taking the adaptive at night was what turned that off for me. And so if that's something that you experience, it's horrible. I mean, it's just like, I don't want to even be thinking about that. And you literally cannot shut your brain off. So I take adaptive every night before I go to bed. And then the other product that I combine with that is the Copaiba. Now, Copaiba can really help amplify the effectiveness of the adaptive. So it's really good for mental, emotional support. And it's also very anti-inflammatory. So at night, I do my Slim and Sassy during the day, right? I still do that for my metabolic function. I am going to give a quick shout out to the Lifelong Vitality Pack. I didn't talk about that a lot, but that's kind of my baseline support. And then at night before bed, I take 2 Serenity gel caps. I take an adaptive and I take the Copaiba. And then would you go ahead and pull up my meme? I actually am going to share with you some of my favorite essential oil blends. And you can either do a blend, you can use one of the doTERRA blends, or you can use the single oil. So you really get to decide what oils you prefer. And I wanted to give you some choices because it really just depends on what your personal preference is. So one of my personal favorites is Balance and Cedarwood, and I just mix equal parts of both of those. Another lovely blend is Sandalwood, Ylang Ylang, and Bergamot. And then some of the blends that I recommend for sleep, if you want to keep it super simple, is the Serenity blend. Also the Peace Blend, which I especially love because it has vetiver in it. Also frankincense, cedarwood, lavender, and of course, vetiver by itself. Now, these are also oils that you could take and rub on the bottoms of your feet. You could rub them on your pillow. If you don't have a diffuser, you could rub them on your wrists and just kind of make them part of your nightly routine. You could put them in a bath before bed. And then, of course, as I mentioned, I take personally 2 Serenity soft gels, and I take 2 Copaiba, and then I take 1 adaptive before bed. So you can dose that in whatever way is appropriate for you. And then circling back to the Slim and Sassy, if you're new to essential oils, I recommend starting slowly. So you can start with 1 to 3 drops, 1 to 3 times a day, and then work that up. You can actually take it 5 drops up to 5 times a day. So that would be 25 drops per day. And you can take that under the tongue. You can take it in water, or you can also take it in a gel cap form. And this blend, beyond, again, helping with sleep, is a metabolic blend. So it's going to help with your digestion. It's going to help with your a whole metabolic system, which again, I'm going to let the doctor speak a little bit more about why that's important. So to kind of wrap this up, because I'd love to hear from all of you, this is sort of what I have done over these years, and I still do today. And now, sure, I have those nights on the full moon where my sleep might be a little challenging, or might have had a little too much ice cream before bed. But overall, my sleep is normal. I get a healthy, 8-9 hours a night. I really value my sleep. And for someone that spent years not sleeping, I've come to realize how absolutely sacred and important our sleep is. So Dr. Josie, I'm going to hand it on over to you.
All right. Thank you, Aisha. Hey, everyone. I'm Dr. Josie Schmidt, naturopathic physician. I usually reside in Portland, Oregon. I'm out on the East Coast right now visiting family. And I just wanted to come in, and I'm going to bring in Dr. Louise Rose as well with me in a second to just break this down. Because at first thought, right, everyone were like, wait a minute, Slim and Sassy, is that metabolic blend? Is that for like losing weight and stuff like that? Why did that help with Aisha's sleep? And that's a good question. And so one of the things us, Dr. Louise and I, the naturopaths, we like to bring in some of the science behind the inner workings of all this. And it's really that we have just one body. And we like to think of these compartments, like sleep is different from weight loss, is different from metabolism, is different from digestion. But our body doesn't think that way and act that way. And it's all interconnected. And the things that are really interconnected are all of our hormones. And so you heard Aisha talking about cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and adrenaline. And these are the 2 hormones that usually in our bodies we were meant to just have them in short periods of time, spurts to run away from the tiger, right? Fight or flight. And so it's like, okay, we need to run. I need tons of energy. My body's going to do that. I'm going to get those stress hormones. It's going to amp everything in my body towards that, which is the opposite of rest and digest. So anything that has to do with digestion or resting, sleeping, all of the hormones, all the things in my body that it was meant to do in that phase are shut down. We talk about this a lot, that in modern day, we basically have a situation where so many of us, most of us, in fact, are in chronic states of high levels of background stress that our body doesn't perceive as any differently as, I have to run away from a tiger. So we have chronic levels of high cortisol and adrenaline in our systems. And when that happens, Ari's like, when that happens, our body is suppressing and interfering with the hormones that are supposed to be there to be for resting and digesting. And a lot of that has to do with other hormones that have to do with, we'll get into that, with like digestion. Part of digestion is what we like to call metabolism. And that means blood sugar. And we hear about this. We hear about blood sugar regulation and insulin. We hear about insulin resistance. All of that is kind of lumped in the rest and digest part of things. And so when you have high levels of stress, of trauma, of difficulty, of overwhelm, you have the hormones like cortisol and adrenaline working through your system that are interfering with these other hormones, because insulin is a hormone that actually gets sugar out of your bloodstream and gets it into our cells where it can be working correctly. We don't want it staying in our bloodstream. And so we get into bad situations. So this is what we are seeing happen when Aisha took this metabolic blend that's meant for helping our blood sugar regulation and our metabolism. When she took this for 1, 2, and 3 days, she really started to see the results. What started to happen in her body was that her insulin response and her blood sugar levels started to normalize. Those were out of balance as a result of all of her stress and her high levels of cortisol. And when she actually helped to normalize that function again, the rest and digest things that had to do with her blood sugar and her insulin function, her body could come back into a restful state. So that's why it's not always a direct thing. It's, how there's that saying, it's not always the thing. So you think of like, it's sleep. I have to take a pill or an oil like lavender that's just for sleep. Sometimes it's not that direct because our body is interlinked with all these other systems. And we have to get a little more creative. When Aisha has said she had tried a lot of things and nothing had worked. So I'm going to bring in Dr. Louise Rose, naturopathic physician. And she's going to tell us a little more, I think, right? You have some cool stuff to tell us a little bit more about insulin resistance, how that works, what goes on with that, and then why Aisha was waking back after she first went to sleep, and then she was waking back again in the middle of the night. Like, what's going on there? But I want to say one of the things that you're going to get when you are on our email newsletter and our recording that comes out on Wednesday from this call is some of our links to our deeper dives into these topics. And Dr. Louise Rose is one of our amazing experts that has done a full hour-long webinar on sleep and all of these issues. So you're going to get the link to that in our Wednesday email. So know that there is a deeper dive, even more, and you get more of Dr. Louise in that link. So definitely watch that. It's an incredible webinar. Thank you, Louise, for joining us.
Why, thank you so much, Josie. It's great to be here. My name is Dr. Louise Rose. I'm a naturopathic physician here in Portland, and the focus of my practice is really on the nervous system. So I've started to think about what I do as whole body mental health, which is a lot of integrating our mental, emotional, hormonal, digestive, brain health, all of the above. So I've spent quite a bit of time learning about the nervous system response to stress. And so that's kind of what we're getting at here. And I just want to talk about what Josie said in a little different way, which might be helpful for people. So Josie talked about cortisol, and you've probably heard about cortisol. It's produced in our adrenal glands, and it is a very important hormone that is helpful when we need to respond to stress. But we also need it just throughout our day. So in a normal, healthy, functioning circadian rhythm person, our cortisol is high in the morning, not too high, just high enough so that we want to wake up and get out of bed and get going and have the energy to do our life. And then gradually throughout the day, it lowers so that it's lowest when it's time to go to bed, and we feel like we can power down and go to sleep and get that restorative sleep. There's so much repairing and detoxing that our body does while we're asleep. One of the main things that is so important about sleep. And then gradually throughout the night, it slowly rises back up. So in the morning, we pop awake. Isn't that what happens in your life, everybody? So one of the things, if I have a patient who comes to me and says that they're consistently waking up in the middle of the night, oftentimes we'll do some lab testing and look at cortisol levels. And you can find sometimes that cortisol levels are low in the morning when you want to wake up and you don't have any energy and you feel like you're hungover and you can't drag yourself out of bed, like Aisha was talking about. And then sometimes they spike up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, they might come up. So because of our modern society and the fact that we didn't evolve to stay awake after it got dark, I mean, that really screws with our hormones and our sleep cycle. We certainly didn't evolve to be like reading blue light phone things after dark, right? Those things are very disruptive to our hormone cycle. We haven't even talked about like melatonin, and all that is stimulated by, so your melatonin, which triggers sleep, gets shut off by those lights. So that's why that's so important. But so we're out of sync with evolution, with the way our biology was designed to work. So when you have your cortisol coming up in the middle of the night, you have to ask, okay, what's going on there? Is it just years of chronic stress that's your hormones of maybe sometimes your adrenal glands got tired of overproducing cortisol, and so they're just not going to give you very much. But another thing that happens in our modern mismatch of our biology with all the food that we're offered to eat, and we eat a lot more processed food. We eat industrial seed oils and artificial flavors and a lot more sugar than humans really do well with. And when we dysregulate our blood sugar, and we don't usually wake up in the middle of the night to feed ourselves. But if we're dysregulated in our blood sugar, we go to bed and our blood sugar drops at, say, 2 or 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, and our brain says, emergency, we need sugar. We don't function very well without glucose coming to our brain. So the brain freaks out, sends a signal to our adrenal glands, we need sugar. And then the adrenal glands kick up your cortisol, which is going to mobilize sugar for your brain. And then you wake up and your brain is very active and you're ready to go for the day, but it's only 2 o'clock in the morning. So that is one of the ways that the metabolic picture influences the stress picture, influences the brain and the stress response. And I hope, it's kind of hard to do that without graphs and all that stuff, but I hope that was clear. And then Josie and I also like to teach people that a little drop or two of coriander in a capsule can be really helpful, because it's very good for normalizing blood sugar. And it's also high in linalool, which is one of our really calming chemistry pieces of essential oils. So that's a great blend. You might even try it with some vetiver. I'd love to hear in the chat if anybody has any experience taking vetiver internally for sleep. It can be very effective when I use that with my patients. Rebecca asks when to do coriander. I would say just before bed. And let's see. So we also know in terms of like the hormonal stress response picture that oftentimes women in perimenopause or menopause can get big sleep disruptions and big temperature dysregulation, right? So we know that having good sleep is really helped by having a lower body temperature. And so if you're somebody that struggles with sleep, you can do things that actually can help regulate your body temperature better. Working with the light, like we said, turning off your devices several hours before bed, getting those glasses that block the blue light can be helpful. I know that's not an oil. Put some wild orange on your glasses and see if that helps block the blue light. All right, what am I forgetting, Josie? Thyroid is another reason,
Oh, yeah.
another very common
The intersection
thing.
of hormone imbalances with sleep disturbances. Yeah.
So our thyroid is like our master hormonal endocrine regulator, and it really speeds us up when it's overactive, and it really slows us down when it's underactive. So if you're somebody that, might be that picture of jittery and wired all the time and kind of running hot, that could be a hyperthyroid situation. And then also, I think Aisha was talking about this sort of wired but tired feeling, that like I'm really tired all day, but then when I actually try to fall asleep, I'm wired. That is a very typical adrenal cortisol dysregulation picture, which also links with the thyroid. So definitely look at the whole blood sugar, hormones, and all your lifestyle habits. Are you moving your body during the day? Are you getting outside in the sunlight, even if it's not sunny, without your glasses on in the early part of the day? That's going to send a signal into your brain that it's time to be awake. And then later, if you take the lights away, your brain says, oh, it's time to power down. Those little things can really be powerful as part of a whole symphony of how we're addressing those issues. And, honestly, like another thing that my patients tell me is pain really disrupts sleep for a lot of people. And we have so many resources to help with inflammation and pain through our products as well. So I just wanted to make sure that got in there too. Sorry to interrupt you.
I want to just give a quick shout out to the webinar that Dr. Louise did that will be shared in the follow-up email, because I believe you actually go through sleep hygiene, and there are so many tips about the light in your bedroom, making sure your bedroom's dark. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do to help promote and support your sleep that we don't have time to get into today. But that can really make a huge difference. Sometimes just literally putting an eye mask over your eyes and blocking out any incoming light can be incredibly helpful. So make sure and watch the webinar that we will be sending out.
And I want to do a little shout out, about some of the things, just hearing you guys talk, just again for this formula of Slim and Sassy, that it's the cinnamon, so much in it is specific to helping support and regulate the blood sugar, along with some ginger. But we also think of the cinnamon, ginger, and peppermint together with really supporting the adrenals. And then you bring in the citruses. There's lemon and grapefruit. There's only 5 things in this formula. And the citruses, we know, support the liver so much in its function of detoxification. And so it's one of these really, I call it the essential oil blend, and helping to bring balance to so many of the systems. So it's one that you really want to bring in a lot of chronic states of adrenal and hormonal disbalances, nervous system, sleep, all of these things. Remember this formula. And then the other thing was when Louise spoke about coriander. Oh my gosh, we love coriander for all that it does with the digestive system. And it has that intersection together. But the other thing that it's doing and helping with sleep is because it's very high in linalool. And we know that that's what lavender is very high in. So linalool is the main ingredient or constituent that we think of to helping the nervous system and that response to bringing calming down into a restful state. While coriander is one of these other essential oils that's high in linalool, so is doTERRA's basil. So other basils from other companies will not have that kind of chemistry, but you're going to also find high linalool in basil, and you're also going to find very high linalool in magnolia. So think about all of these oils: lavender, coriander, basil, or magnolia when you're wanting these effects. And so we pretty much only have magnolia for topical use. So that's something if you don't, if you're not ready to be taking a capsule. But I wanted to bring that in. If you think about, okay, that re-waking up and wanting to get back to sleep after you've woken up in the middle of the night, Louise, right? You're talking about coriander for that. Well, I know where's Erin? Where's her little square? It's like the Brady Bunch here with our
She actually got kicked off. She'll be back in a moment.
Okay. So Erin will probably share with us I think I heard this first from her as a share about Serenity gel caps being specifically helpful for that. They're helpful for going to sleep, but they're really helpful for that time in the night when you have woken up maybe 2 or 3 in the morning and you want to get back to sleep. And so think about the linalool response that we're seeing with coriander. You're also going to see that in the Serenity gel caps with the lavender and some of the other ingredients in there.
Dr. Josie, we also have a share from Florence that I would like to read.
Okay,
On
yes.
occasion, I have difficulty shutting my brain off, usually when I have some important things going on. I found taking 2 Serenity soft gels and 2 Copaiba soft gels work great for me, usually giving it about 20 minutes to kick in. I love diffusing Serenity and breathe. Absolutely. So thank you for that share. I also do want to add too that sometimes if I wake up in the night or if I can't fall asleep, cedar wood. I find that if I go and slather some cedar wood on, that will actually coax me into falling asleep. So it's such a good one to use too. Let's see, Carolyn shares, Magnolia has been so helpful to me when I wake up and have racing thoughts and or pain that causes me some feelings of anxiousness. Thank you.
I'll share if you have a moment.
Yes, please.
So my name is Dianne DelReyes. I'm a practitioner of Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And I think one of the really key things to take away, and I think Louise went through this pretty thoroughly, is that there's not a one size fits all model here. That our sleep disturbance is unique to us, our situations, our lifestyles, our genetics, our constitution. And so in Chinese medicine, we're always looking to treat the root cause. So we're treating the symptom, but then we have to get underneath it and see what is the imbalance that we are trying to regulate. So as an example, Louise was talking about menopause or perimenopause. This is a time in women's life where what's called our kidney yin is becoming deficient. And if you think about, and then we're also getting these temperature dysregulations as well. So if you think about yin as your air conditioner, yang as your heater, and yin and yang, right? And so as long as they're in balance, we are good. Our temperature is regulated. But when our yin becomes deficient, you have what's called a relative heat. So you want to be able to do things that are going to nourish yin, not necessarily take down the heat. You want to nourish the yin, because just the heat would be symptomatic, and then it's getting more dysregulated. So something like vetiver is extremely good for nourishing yin. It's one of our most yin nourishing oils. And then you have to look at things like what we call heart chi constraints. So are you getting like that anxiety and the palpitations and that kind of thing? Then you want to look at oils like whoever just said cedar wood. I think Aisha said cedar wood. or sandalwood, like those kinds of oils, when you're having these kind of scattered thoughts, really kind of gather that chi and really stabilize that chi and your energy. So using vetiver, by the way, just on the bottom of your foot, at oh, my foot looks kind of dirty. Sorry. Kidney 1, that's a really good point, because that really descends chi, really takes that energy, it cools you down, it nourishes the yin, but also descends that chi. And then thinking about things like we have something called the Chinese clock. So if you're waking up at a specific time every night, you want to look at the clock. So I have it right here because I was like, I don't remember. Yeah. So liver time would be 1 to 3 a.m. Gallbladder is 11 to midnight. Lung is 3 to 5 a.m. and large intestine 5 to 7 a.m. So those are the things that you want to look. Is there something going on with, am I having respiratory issues? Am I having shortness of breath? Am I having grief? So you got to look at the mental and the emotional. I mean, the mental, emotional, and the physical. And it's also really important whenever you're treating something on the physical to treat the mental, emotional aspect of it as well. So those are just kind of some of the points. So really trying to hone in on what your underlying cause is, why you're not sleeping is really important.
Oh, thank you, Dianne.
Yeah. And I have lots of points I can share at another time.
We have a recipe over on Facebook. Did you see that, Aisha, or should I read it? I can read it. It's from Nikki Dean. She says, when I have overactive thoughts, I diffuse wild orange, cedarwood, and frankincense at bedtime so I don't wake up thinking and strategizing. I call it my overthinker's blend. Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, wasn't that, hey, we should throw that out to people. I think I first heard that from Dr. Sue Lawton back in the day. Was, if you're one of those, there's few people for whom lavender just isn't the right chemistry for you. And actually, does anyone remember the metaphysics on this? It was that lavender was too opening. I believe if you're already someone who's too open energetically, and lavender was too opening, and it would kind of make all the thoughts and that waking worse. It would be like, no, don't use wild orange instead. It's one of those ones where kind of like wild orange is the thing that will actually help calm you down and give you some grounding. So you'd want to work into some more grounding oils, not oils that might open you up too much in your top energy centers, because that could just make the waking and the thinking exacerbate it.
I think this conversation is a really good reminder that we have all of these choices, and one oil that might work wonderfully for one person might not work for another. And so it's like a prescription. Like sometimes your doctor will give you a medication and it's not quite the right medication for you. So it doesn't mean that the oils aren't going to work. Sometimes it means you just got to find the right formula for you. And so it's important to remember that my exact protocol that works for me is giving you a foundation to work with. It's giving you a starting point, but then you get to decide, what is your body really responding to at night? What smells do you really enjoy? If you don't like one blend, then don't diffuse it. Diffuse a blend that you like and that you have a response to. So it's important to keep that in mind when using this plant medicine.
Yeah, right. I love, and that, thank you, Dianne. We can go to the different perspectives. There's kind of Western herbalism, and then we go to the Eastern Chinese, and Dianne was saying, yeah, lavender is chi moving. So in Western herbalism, we think, and we all love it for kind of doing some calming, but for some people, it's going to be too enlivening on an energetic level for them. And I love that recipe. Thank you. Who is that? So wild orange, frankincense, and cedarwood. And all of this is to say we are trying to give people in these calls different ideas. If you're new, start here. We do say if you're new, try lavender. That is the starting place for most people for calming down and helping the nervous system and so many things. It's a broad chemistry, and it has a good amount, 30% of linalool. It's, for most people, it's going to be really helpful. But then we're all different. We all are bio-individual. And so we want to bring in different stories when, for the small amount of people, that's not the right, way for their body to find that relief. We have some other recipes.
This is awesome. What a great call today. And I hope that it's helping someone. I hope someone is listening and you're getting some ideas and some recipes and you might be able to share with others. We have time for one more protocol share tip, and then we're going to wrap up the call. So is there anything else in the chat that you're seeing, or anybody have another tip they want to share?
We definitely have
There's
things
a little bit over here. Yeah. You want to
Great.
read it, Aisha? Rebecca's, and
Sure.
then Louise has a blend, and Dianne has a blend that they
Okay,
wrote
I'll
up.
read through these. If anybody wants to come on and share live, just raise your hand. I'll start with Rebecca's share. The pandemic totally changed my sleep. I had a hysterectomy very young, and the pandemic kicked me out of my hormone balance and everything else. Nearly every night, I get up in the middle of the night where I have both adaptive and serenity by my bed to help me get back to sleep. I have been following Aisha's 2 Copaiba, 1 Serenity, and 1 Adaptive before bed. And what I've just realized and reminded about tonight, I haven't been using Slim and Sassy consistently, and great idea about coriander before bed that may be able to keep me asleep. And diffusing Console, I agree, is my best sleep. I love Console as well. Dr. Louise shares, I love wild orange, frankincense, Roman chamomile in the diffuser, especially for kids. Yeah, this is so fantastic for kids. And Dianne shares, my favorite sleep diffuser blend is cedarwood, serenity, petitgrain, and sandalwood. Ooh, I want to try that. And then I think, did we get everything off the Facebook page? So I think, did I get everything?
I think so. I just want to also put a shout out for balance, which is something that oftentimes beginners have with their lavender, and balance is such a really good, like Dianne was talking about it, it's going to just ground your energy.
Yes, balance is a favorite. Yes, I had that on my protocol, and even though it has cedarwood in it, I love to add cedarwood to it.
Yeah, I think the key here for beginners is, before you go to bed at night, put something in your diffuser or rub something on the bottom of your feet and experiment, because you never know what you're going to discover is your magic sleep blend. My husband loves adaptive oil and citrus bliss in the diffuser for sleep, and that's his magical sleep blend.
Erin, I know you're going to start now. Can I do a little add on to that?
Sure.
Hey, sometimes we don't have a diffuser, right? I'm visiting my mama and she gave hers away. And so what works, if you're beginning, what works really well, and remember just the basics, is she had Serenity blend and she was really anxious. And so I just put a little bit on her wrists, rubbed them in here, and I did a little bit at the back of her neck. That's kind of the highway of circulation to the brain, and the wrists is a good way to get all the circulation and the meridian points to the body. And then, since I had it on my hand, I just held it up in front of her face and told her to take 3 deep breaths. And we just went through and did the breathing and the 3 breaths. And then she sat there and I could just see all of it just started to kind of melt away. I put a couple more drops into my hands and I rubbed it on her pillow. So I just went like this with the oil on her pillow. And then she felt good enough to go to sleep and had a really nice, restful sleep. So if you're traveling or if you don't have a diffuser, you can do that. And you can also do it on the bottoms of the feet. So that's how we use it as well.
I know we're almost out of time, but I just want to add this one last little note that these oils are safe for your whole family. So infants, children, animals, we all suffer from stress and anxiety, right? Regardless of our age. So you can put them in your children's room, you can diffuse them around your cats and your dogs and your birds. And it really is impactful, not only to diffuse them at night, but literally just diffuse them in the home all day long. 24/7 is what happens in my house. So, okay, Erin, I'll pass it back over to you.
Awesome. Well, I think we did such a great job in the call today, and we actually covered a lot of the points that we want to cover every week, especially for the new person. But I'm just going to go over a couple of these basics. If you're brand new to essential oils and you're still learning, we can't repeat the basics often enough because it just helps us really solidify it in our brain. So there are 3 cool things about essential oils. And those 3 things are they're safe for the whole family, like Aisha said. They're effective. You're going to have profound changes if you use them. And they are affordable. I bet if we did a price comparison with the Ambien prescription versus Serenity, you're probably saving a lot of money. Now, there's 3 ways to use them. We've talked a lot about the aromatic use with sleep, but we've also talked about the internal use by taking the capsules or the Slim and Sassy. And then we've talked about topical by putting it on the bottom of your feet. So you can use the oils all 3 ways when you're addressing sleep. What we haven't talked a lot about, and I want to touch on really quickly, is not all essential oils are the same. So if you go to the grocery store or you go onto Amazon, you're going to find a lot of essential oils. They even sell them at places like Costco or Walmart, but please don't buy them there. They are probably not pure. They might not even have plant material in them. They're probably just like a perfume. We recommend, and we all use doTERRA essential oils because doTERRA is dedicated to purity and potency. They're also dedicated to sustainability. So their growers are taken care of. And we have something called the Co-Impact Sourcing Initiative. And they're dedicated to leadership. So they want the world to be empowered with financial wealth and physical health. So if you don't have any essential oils yet, you're going to want to talk to the person who invited you to this call or reach out to one of us. We're here to help. If you're trying to address sleep, we recommend that you start with the Healthy Habits Kit. That's going to give you the Lifelong Vitality Pack that doTERRA, Aisha talked about, a couple of other starter oils and some digestive enzymes, probiotics. That's really our foundational protocol that we think almost everybody should be on. That will give you a wholesale account, and then you can take part in the Targeted Wellness Sleep Track. So doTERRA has curated monthly orders in these different subjects, and you go on a 90-day cycle, and they put together a beautiful sleep kit for you. It gets delivered to your door every month. That's going to have a lot of the items that Aisha spoke about. If you try to buy Slim and Sassy right now, you're not going to be able to. It's out of stock. But don't worry, it is coming back. We're all headed to Salt Lake City in September, and I know from a little birdie that there's going to be Slim and Sassy by convention. So don't you worry. So next Monday, this is kind of a 2-parter. We called these 2 weeks From Frazzled to Fabulous, and we wanted to talk about sleep and stress because you heard Aisha really say her sleep dysfunction started with stress. So next week, we're going to be talking about stress, much in the same format. We'll hear a story. We'll hear from our wonderful Doc Talk section, and then please come as a community ready to share your topics and invite friends. If you know anyone who needs to learn about these oils, please bring them. And that actually brings me to a perk with your doTERRA membership. So if you get started with doTERRA, not only do you get these great products at a great price, but they have it set up in a way so that you can be an affiliate and you can actually earn a commission by sharing. So if you introduce someone to doTERRA essential oils, doTERRA will give you a 20 to 25% commission check just for doing that. So just make sure you learn about that from the person who invited you so you can get set up properly. So that brings us to the close of our call. I want to thank Aisha for sharing her story, Dr. Josie and Dr. Louise Rose and Dianne DelReyes for bringing in the expertise as physicians and practitioners, and then to our whole community for sharing your tips and your recipes and your stories. We are so much better together than we are apart. We love learning and growing with all of you, and we want nothing more than for you to experience deep peace and sustained wellness. So we will hear from you next week. And thank you for tuning in to the Visionary Leaders Community Call. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
I'm just trying to turn off my recording and then I'm staying on.